life's erupted. There was a lot of experimentation throughout that period. Definitely some of the big decisions I've made during my transitional periods have been affected, helped, hindered, whatever, but psychedelics have played a part for sure. There was some tricky times, honestly, mentally. There was some really tricky times in that period. It just proper hit me in my, like, wow, my self-worth was so low. Yeah. Because that's all they wanted to pay me. When I was younger, any uncomfortable situations I'd sort of run from. But the older I get, I sort of run to them. The biggest change in my life, hands down, has been becoming a father. That was sort of quite a roller coaster journey, to be honest.
Do you think there's a chance we'll see you between the tapes at a World Cup?
It'd be interesting to see where I stacked up after not having done it for so long.
Josh Bryceland, welcome back to the Downtime Podcast, mate. It was 2018 last time we sat down for the show. I sat on your canal boat and spoke to Josh Bryceland, the mountain bike racer, and I'm here now in your house talking to Josh Bryceland, the mountain bike racer, the husband, the father, the landowner, the race organizer, the business owner, the brand ambassador. 6 years, man, and it feels like a lot has changed for you.
Yeah. It's nice to sit down with you again, mate, and reflect. I think, it has. Life's erupted. But I think this year, it's like, especially has felt. I was reflecting the other day with Jess. I just recently got invited to an event in America, and I feel like I'm in a very similar, a sort of similar position to I was 10 years ago at this point.
Yeah.
Like having just wrapped up the World Cup and then gone to World Champs, not to just go straight back to that stuff, but like, I got invited to this thing where it like fairly intense riding in America, and I was like, you know what? I've just had a huge year, and my brain isn't like completely in it, so I'm not gonna, because I've been there and it didn't end well.
No, it didn't.
Gonna like sit and have a few weeks and just gather myself. But yeah, life changed incredibly, but welcoming it all with open arms and. Do you know what I've enjoyed the most is like my ability to learn and adapt. I think something in school, I never really took on information that well.
Okay.
But the older you get and the more interested you are in things, it's a lot easier to take that stuff on, isn't it? And I do enjoy learning.
Yeah, I think that's the key, is being interested in it, right? School doesn't necessarily adapt to the individual, whereas you're choosing what you learn now, and it's a very different ball game, I think. So yeah, I wanted to dig back into where I think some of the roots of the change sort of began for you. And I think, like, obviously you had your foot injury from Rafael, which was 2014, right? So yeah, we're 10 years away from that now. You had a lot of time to contemplate and think and sit around with your foot up. And I think there was a bit of like experimentation with psychedelics around that period as well. Like, I'm kind of keen to get your thoughts on that and dig into some of that experience a little bit, because I think that probably changed your view on some things for sure.
Yeah, it did. There was a lot of experimentation throughout that period, and also for myself, there was not just the mushrooms, but a lot of THC as well. Uh-huh. And for me, there was as many negatives as there was positives. I think THC has changed so much. Oh, well, cannabis, weed, whatever, has changed so much since I was a kid to what you get now. But it's a completely different thing. Like, these days, I don't touch it at all. And that was something that I never thought would happen. And then with the psychedelics, personally, there was just like a lot, for me, there was a lot of like introspection needed. Like, you work your whole life towards this goal, you achieve the goal, you get a few days, hours, whatever, of like the elation.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, you're just still the same person and nothing's actually changed. You've still got to go and in my case, take the cassette to the tank and do all that sort of stuff. You know, nothing actually changes.
Yeah.
So for me, it was like, right, where am I? What do I need to do? And I didn't know, and I didn't have any other skills besides riding bikes. I'd put every single bit of effort I had as a kid into just like riding my bike. Not because I was like, I need to do this because I need to be world champ or anything like that. I just loved it, and it was my escape.
Yeah.
And that was the one thing which made me just feel at peace, you know. And yeah, then all of a sudden, like, when you like, what else have I got?
Yeah, totally.
What else have I got?
Yeah.
So it was, yeah, there was some tricky times, honestly, mentally. There was some really tricky times in that period of transitioning away from World Cup racer to what am I doing? And like the easiest thing was just to fall into like, cool, we've got the YouTube channel, we're creating content, along with the EWS as well, and sort of ran them two things simultaneously. But yeah, I think there've been definitely some of the big decisions I've made during my transitional periods have been affected, helped, hindered, whatever, but psychedelics have played a part for sure.
Yeah. How can you explain the experience to some extent? Like when you're using a psychedelic product in that way, like what's it doing for you? And like there's obviously positives and negatives to this. There's increasing amounts of research about some of the benefits of it if it's done controlled, but it can also be risky and send you into bad places as well as good places, right?
100%. I think the key thing is to have intention in what you're doing. A lot of the times for me, it was just purely recreational and escapism, which is a dangerous angle to come at it from, because they can be super powerful, you know, experiences you have. And if you aren't directed or have the intention, you can just get lost on a thing and come out way worse off than you went in.
Yeah.
So, yeah, good and bad. I think for me, a lot of it was purely recreational, but when you're on that journey, you little ideas which you wouldn't give another moment to in everyday life can take you down a whole spiral thought train. And then I feel like you're really affected by not affected, but yeah, that stayed with me and was very pivotal in so many decisions I made and how I wanted to try and live. And yeah, now we're oscillating completely back the other way, which is just super interesting. And I think for me, that's what's most important, is like one of my sort of things is to be open-minded, and like being open-minded is trying something new and exploring a new thing. But the moment when you then refuse to come back the other way, you've lost that open-mindedness.
Yeah, 100%.
And like, I'm one of them people, I'm quite intense. So when I subscribe to a viewpoint, I go all the way in. I'm like, yeah. And I dive in head first. But then to come out and come back again is even more like, I just feel light whenever I drop something and go, you know, I'm like, wow, you know. But I think the premise of like everything we were doing beforehand and some of the decisions I made were like putting the planet first. Yeah. Which you have to be very careful with, because selfishly, I put myself first now. Mm-hmm. Me and Jess put our health before the planet,
Yeah.
In that sense.
Yeah.
And we are of the planet, and if we're healthy and we're bringing a good energy, the knock-on effect, it's all,
Yeah. You're not out there like just burning fuel for the crack and stuff, but
Exactly.
like it's a moderate approach rather than a staunch, like we're all the way over here kind of thing. It's a livable approach to being good to the planet.
And a sustainable approach from our longevity point of view for what we actually feel is best for us. But yeah, of course, we try and be as we get our meat from a local butcher in Bollington, Jeremy, and the lambs graze on the field of where the hub was for the Enduro, and it is a local thing, but there's no eating meat without some trauma being somewhere, you know what I mean?
For sure. Yeah.
But we are an apex predator, and that's life, isn't it?
Yeah. And travel as well was something, I think, like when you stepped away from racing, you were conscious of the footprint of racing, and maybe didn't want to be part of that at that stage. Have you to some extent modified your thinking on that as well?
I have and I haven't. I think it's just like, I have for sure. But I still like I just try not to waste. And looking back, we weren't particularly wasteful as a team at the time on the syndicate back then. We weren't. I think I was just wanted, I almost wanted reasons of justification for my decision to step away from racing, and I didn't have loads of great ones because nobody wanted me to step away from it. I just wasn't there. So I was like, here's some reasons.
These sound reasonable.
And they did feel right at the time. And along with that stuff, and that goes back to the psychedelics thing a little bit. It's like it was easier for me to that doesn't feel right, and go off on that tangent and like stick them labels on it. But I think I just didn't have the confidence in myself at the time to say, no, I'm done. That's that.
You maybe couldn't put it into words initially. Maybe like it's hard to, some of those feelings that you now understand a lot better at the time are probably quite hard to live with, quite strange, quite hard to understand. Like, I'm winning. I'm one of the best, if not the best in the world. Why don't I want to do this anymore? Like, I've done it all my life.
It was tricky. It was extremely tricky. It was. But, so exactly that, a lot of that stuff, a real mix of all sorts in my boiling pot of excuses and reasons and feelings. And it's funny now, like I'll put a set of tyres on my bike and they will last me ages, and I love the feeling of running a set of tyres till they're bald. And
there's something about that, isn't there? It's like the bragging rights. Like, look, I got down there on that. Yeah.
And you never do that as a World Cup racer because you want that sharp edge, you want them little hairs on it because you want to know, and just little things like that. But in the grand scheme of consumption globally, it's a drop in the ocean, isn't it? So
yes,
I try and be as conscious as I can with my consumption and whatnot. But back to what we were talking about with children before, it's like we were never going to get one single thing plastic for our son. And now we've got a house full of it.
Exactly. We had the same intention, and it's very hard to avoid.
Yeah, indeed.
The world is a challenging place if you want to live like with the best intentions, but we do what we can, I guess. So
yeah, and Jess has this quote she says from this Instagram guy, but a happy donut is better than a sad salad. It's all what you make of it. You can beat yourself up about the smallest things, or you can just be open and accepting and do your best, like you said.
Yeah, and crack into the donuts. Nice. And I guess another big change, like again looking from the outside anyway, was that move away from Santa Cruz to Cannondale, which I think was a real surprise for a lot of people. Like Santa Cruz, certainly then, I'm not sure if it's still quite the same, but it had such a family feel to it. People tended to go to Santa Cruz and stay at Santa Cruz. That's changed a little bit. We've seen people come and go from the team a bit more in latter years, but yeah, it was a shock, right, to people. And again, I think probably quite a huge thing for you. Talk us through a little bit like that move from Santa Cruz onto Cannondale.
Yeah. I mean, I'll rewind back quite far with this because it is quite a big subject, but for me personally. And it plays into a lot of the stuff we've just talked about. But my relationship was always with Rob Roscott.
Yeah.
Very personally. And through Petey sort of held my hand getting into that situation. And I actually never even spoke to Rob before my first contract came through. But I'd had an offer. I'd had an offer going into my second year junior from Pete, a Polish fella who ran my team. Blenky was on back then. Anyway, that's beside the point. And Pete was like, "We've got you this. Stay with us. You don't want to ride for anything else," sort of thing.
Yeah.
Which interestingly became very much a theme. And Rob took me in like I was his own Roscott. I used to go and stay with Laper and my kids. And for 3 or 4 weeks in winter, when the weather got terrible over here, I'd fly out to California and I'd train from their house. And I was part of their family, and it was beautiful. And they were so accepting, just generous and lovely. And on a personal level, I felt so much generosity from them. But there was always a very sudden transfer into business mode with Rob when it came to contract time. And, successful businessman, understandable. But I feel like that theme sort of ran for a very long time. And whenever it was contract time, I'd get an offer here, or I'd be speaking to someone else, and I'd go to Rob and I'd be like, "Well, actually, Rob, I know you've offered me $30,000, but in my head I had like 45 as like my thing, and I've been speaking to this other company, and he'd be like, "Well, you're not going to go and ride for them, are you? So take your 30, and that's that." I'd always be like, okay. And it was and then we'd go out into San Fran the next day, and he'd be spending tens of thousands on paintings and this and that, and it was all these little power plays which were quite prominent for me as a young man. It was quite like, it's just kind of tricky to navigate in a sense.
And you were pretty young at this point, right?
Yeah. And as it went on, there was always we did have a great thing going, don't get me wrong, like the team was fantastic. My Petey to me, like, he is, there's definitely been times in my career where we've sort of been butting heads, and the older I get, the more I realise how much have just wound him up so much with my behaviour. And like, I totally get it, having taken my waves around for a few years, and just like lack of organisation and
Yeah.
So yes, but I'm really, really going on with myself here. But after I stepped away from racing, World Cup, and sort of muddled my way into whatever was next, I didn't have a plan. I often don't. I'm not one of them people who sort of forecasts and makes long-term goals. Really, if I'm passionate about something, I'll put my head down and I'll work towards it. But when I don't have a plan, I just let life unfold and see where I end up, and trust that it'll work out one way or another. And I was very, very much in one of them situations, and the management was coming down on me fairly heavily, like, "Well, what are you going to be doing?" I still had another year left of my contract to race World Cup for the best money I'd ever been on. Looking at it now, it's pittance compared to what the top boys will be getting. But for me, it was a huge thing, and I could have just kept my mouth shut and gone for another year, and done a world tour and rolled down the hill and enjoyed myself. But that didn't sit right with me. I didn't want to do that. It wasn't what I was invested in, emotionally and physically. So anyway, I ended up getting like 70% whatever slashed off my contract.
Yeah.
And then I worked harder than ever for the next few years. I worked so hard because I was like, wow, like, is that all I'm worth? Like, it just proper hit me in my, like, wow, my self-worth was so low.
Yeah.
Because that's all they wanted to pay me. And I was like, I was flipping World Cup champion 2 years ago. And now I'm an ambassador for this brand, and we can't, it was like, it was gnarly. And that hurt me and stayed with me. And the first year off, I grafted really, really hard, and they're like, oh yeah, we see what you're doing in a few years, you'll be back to some decent thing or whatever. So I'm like, right, okay, not now, but in a few years, sound. And then Nick got in touch, and and after I stopped racing, I didn't really, Rob was devastated I'd stopped racing, understandably. Petey was devastated I'd stopped racing. A lot of people, they saw so much more potential in my career. So I didn't have as much to do with them because they didn't want to speak to me, because they didn't agree with what my decisions. And, the relationship with Rob especially broke down a little bit. Mm-hmm. And then when I've known Nick for quite a few years before this point, when he got hold of his position at Cannondale, and I started seeing the brand and what he was doing with Max, and I was like, yeah, he's selling it to me. Like, I want to be part of that movement. He's bringing this brand up,
yeah,
and I want to be on that train because I'm just enjoying this different take on it. So then I started chatting to Nick, and Nick was like, the product isn't ready. I wanted to talk to you, but not yet. And I was like, mate, I want to come.
I want in, yeah.
I want in, and I want to bring these boys with me. And behind the scenes, I'd already been trying to get Dave a ride on Santa Cruz, Sam Hockenall.
Yeah.
And they were like, yeah, we've not got space currently for any new riders. And I was like, oh man. And Nick was like, I really want you to bring some young talent up with you. So I was like, amazing. It just felt like it slotted into place perfectly. So made the jump. I'd told Rob, I'd been having emails back and forth with Joe Graney, and Joe had been sort of saying to me, if you want to be eco and sustainable and all this, there's no way you can be riding for that company. And had sort of gone in on a bit of a personal attack at Cannondale as well as me. And I was like, mint, well, that's just signed it for me. Like, if we can't even like chat on, if we're pointing fingers here, I'm out, I'm gone. And I didn't actually speak to Rob because he hadn't spoke to me for months on end. So I was like, if we've not got an open line of communication, that's that, I'm doing it. And in hindsight, I should have had more communication, but Rob was really hurt by me just leaving without saying anything. But I'd been really hurt by other things in my past. So it was just like this unfolding, that was just how it went down. And it just gave me a new lease of life. I look back often on 2019 and what we achieved that year was, man, we were in Europe twice, 3 times on like 6-week trips in the Sprinter van with 4 of us. We were in America doing road trips, did 2 American missions. Like, the content we created, the events we hit, and we all did that on one bike. We had the aluminium habit. Yeah. We rode probably 10,000 miles on them things down. We rode so much. I don't know how much we rode, maybe a couple of thousand. We rode so much on them bikes. And it was a year I'll never, ever forget. And it really reinvigorated me just to like, when I left Santa Cruz and when I left World Cup and race EWS, we were creating content and doing EWS on the side and trans races, and they were, wonderful, wonderful stuff. Like, I loved it. But just not even think about a clock and just ride my bike with younger lads who were just frothing for it. Like, that was a special year. It really was. Yeah,
it was good to see, man. You could see something was happening for you, like the life was coming back into you, like the Josh that we all know and love was coming back onto our screens and websites and all that stuff. It was good to see. Was it hard though to negotiate like a new contract when you don't have that like with the racing, the value is a bit clearer, right? You can go and speak to other people that are willing to share as well in the area and look at like what people are earning, and you get a bit of an idea for what you're worth. Whereas when you're doing what you're doing, and they're still doing,
pulling
right?
out of a hat.
Yeah, you're like, here's a number. Will you pay me? Like,
Yeah.
how did that feel going into those sort of negotiations?
Honestly, I felt in quite a strong position, funnily, because I'd sort of like, I'd say like 2016 into 17 was probably a low point for me. Like, my self-worth was down. I didn't know my direction.
Yeah.
But then worked real hard them next couple of years, and we were early on the YouTube movement. So we had our own channel, 50 to 1 with Loose, and we were, you know, super active. We were here, there, and everywhere, and I felt valuable, and I found it, I found that quite one of the easier ones I've ever done.
Okay.
And I wasn't asking for the world. It wasn't World Cup money. I'm not like trying to come in with crazy, but I was like, here's a figure I'm comfortable with and I feel like I'm worth, and here's the boys I'm bringing with me, and here's what they're worth, and did it for them as well. And it all just got okayed, and everyone was happy. All parties were happy, and it was like, felt like a lovely transaction. And I do feel like we totally delivered on that as well.
Yeah. And do you think part of that's the experience you've had with Steve? Like, I
Massively.
think he's done a lot of that for riders, like help them understand their value, help them negotiate, like to take that learning and then to be able to give that to the rest of the guys on the Waves crew, it was called.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That must have felt good.
Yeah, Petey instrumental in all of that. Petey's just an absolute don in like business. It's what it is.
Yeah.
Steve's a businessman.
Yeah. How do you feel about that side of it? Because like as mountain bikers, like we're probably as far away from like business as things can get, and then once a year or once every 2 years, you've got to go do that business part of it. Like, does that bother you, or you used to that these days?
It quite excites me in some ways because like nowadays, when I was younger, any uncomfortable situations I'd sort of run from, but the older I get, I sort of run to them a little bit, and I'm like, that's out of my comfort zone. I'm really going to just like lean into that and like face it. And then it becomes less uncomfortable. But yeah, no, I love it. I absolutely love it. And especially just having, Petey's, I see Steve and he just becomes like, as Roscop did with me, you know, as a kid. And now even just reflecting sat here, like I can't take it personally because I have to respect that, because that's what got him to where he is. Yeah. And it's like, right, it's business time. Flick that switch, put the front on and be serious and stand your ground. And it's like, and you say that, but I think mountain biking's huge business. It is business, and it's cutthroat. Like rolling back to 2019 or whatever, the amount of content creators, Instagram, you know, it's saturated now. Them 5-6 years, whatever it's been, it has boomed, and every brand has really, really good riders making really good content. Yeah, you know, the sport is full and booming, and if you're not doing it, the next guy is going to be doing it. So it's a competitive business world, whether you're racing or whatever you're doing.
Yeah, this is true. Can you put a finger on what changed you from running away from uncomfortable situations to leaning into them? Like, was there a trigger somewhere in your life, or is it just a maturity thing?
Yeah, I can't tell you. No, I can't tell you where that was, but
because it's a big shift in mindset.
Yeah, like now more than ever, like having. The biggest change in my life, hands down, has been becoming a father. Like, from that moment on, like, being self-conscious about what you wear, but none of that matters at all.
Yeah.
It doesn't even come close. There's a bigger thing, and you are protecting and providing. And like, for me, that has been hands down the best and most challenging and the biggest thing. And I love it. And I'm so blessed and grateful for that opportunity, and just like, yeah. But I think slowly maturing as a man before that point, somewhere along the line, I started feeling that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I can't answer that. What was a defining moment? I can't answer that, and I don't know if there was one.
Maybe it's been a steady transition to just getting a bit more comfortable with being uncomfortable over time. But yeah, kids will definitely push you out of that. Like, how has it been? You're what, a year and a half?
Yeah, nearly. Yeah, 16, 17 months, and yeah, amazing. Honestly, amazing. Like, he's responsible for me going back to hardline.
Really?
In a mad way.
Go on,
I'm
then.
just like, because I'm just like, right, I'm still able to make some money from mountain biking. Like, how do I keep myself relevant? Like, what do I do to not just fall off and just be a washed up old dude trying to do a skid round a corner or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, I need to be in the mix. And hardline, I remember watching it in 22 and having a bit of FOMO, and I was like, man, that looks good. Like, I've dialed it in. Like, the first year I did it, it was terrifying and janky and all these things. And then watching it in 22, I was like, man, that looks fun, like big. And then you see the crash reels and you think,
But more people make it to the finals now than ever before, right? It used to be like 6 or 7 people
dropping
left.
like flies, weren't they?
Yeah.
But and you know, Sylvester just being like a huge motivator for me to like stay relevant, keep my finger on my pulse, and do whatever I can to make myself valuable to a brand.
Okay.
And also do it like the older you get. Like, when I talk about it a little bit, like when I used to test as a younger man for Santa Cruz when I was racing World Cup, every run would be different. Like, I was trying to test clicks on my suspension. Every run would be different. I'd be bouncing up, you know. I wasn't there.
Yeah.
And now I feel so much more calculated on my bike. But yeah, I'm not going to ride at 110%. But I know that at 85, 90, I'm fairly consistent and accurate. And it feels so different. It's just like that maturity transferred onto a bike. It's so different.
Yeah, it's interesting because for some people, I think like there's a potential for increased risk aversion when you've got a child to get back for. So hearing you say like it made me want to go to hardline, for some people they'd be like, what? Hang on a minute.
No.
But that's cool that it took you in the other direction. Like, do you feel any of that, especially in the run up to hardline when they're showing the Canyon Gap and Jim Monroe like off bike midair, just about making it over? Like, as a father, and I think you took Jess and Sylvester along to the event, like, how did that feel, sort of watching that and getting yourself ready for it?
Yeah, that was sort of quite a roller coaster journey, to be honest. The text came through the night before we were to leave for hardline that they were removing the Canyon Gap, and I was just like sat in bed, huge sigh of relief, like, thank goodness. And then actually hilarious, because then you get there and you look at it knowing you don't have to do it, and your brain's going, oh, that actually looks pretty chill. It's like, no, if they told you had to jump it right now and you were on that rolling, that would not be looking chill, mate. You've got some weird like psychological thing because you don't have to. But yeah, that was a bit, just seeing all that stuff was like, oh, gnarly. And people sending it me all week, and I'm like, yeah, I know, I've seen it. I'm
on
fully
the internet,
prepared to do it. And then I was like, oh, nice, we don't have to do that.
Yeah, good experience though, right? Being back with that crew, like it always has a good vibe to it. Like, everyone's helping each other, working together. So much
camaraderie throughout the week.
Yeah,
honestly. And for me, having I'd done that one downhill race in Ireland a couple of weeks before, having not actually linked a downhill run together for however many years it's been. It was a good few years. just getting down that track, doing a full run of that track was such a buzz, mate. Such a buzz. And just being in that environment, but just being in a totally different mindset. No expectations. No one cared or thought about what result I was going to get. I was just there riding my bike. I was like, this is wonderful. Really, really enjoyable.
Yeah. Was it cool to be riding in front of fans again? Because that's probably something you've not really done much. Maybe a little bit Steel City downhill, but bar that, you've not really been in front of the core group of fans for a while.
No, not at all. Not at all. Yeah, it was lovely. Yeah, just like I said, just being part of a whole picture was just really, really nice. And it was just like, I've said it a few times, but it's like catching up with an old friend. It's like, I know this all really well, and I've just not seen it or taken part in it for ages, but it's super familiar and easy. So yeah, I enjoyed it a lot.
So let's talk a little bit about racing then. So it's, 10 years since, 9 years, I guess, since you properly stepped away from World Cup racing. Have you been consuming it? Do you watch it? Like what's been your connection with World Cup downhill over the last 5 or 10 years?
Yeah, you know what? It took me quite some time to actually want to consume it. At first, there were so many different feelings at first. Like when I stepped away from it, it was quite hard to even, like, people chatting to me about it excitedly, and I'd be like, I don't want to talk about that. Weird, like a weird breakup kind of thing. Yeah. It was strange. But yeah, I do. Now I watch it, and I'm like a big fan of loads of the guys, and I really enjoy. I'm not like a diehard Bruni fan, or like I'm a Bruni fan, but I'm a fan of like all them dudes, and I appreciate what they're all doing, and I love what they all bring individually, all the different personalities and characters, and yeah, I don't religiously watch. I don't pay for the feed thing. Okay. I'm like hitting that tis.thingy link,
yeah,
that dodgy link.
When Warner Brothers will be round, mate, when they see this.
But I, if I'm not busy, like, I don't prioritize it over like all the crazy different jobs I've had to do. Yeah. And if I'm like out on my bike with Sylvester, if I'm in my house, the laptop will be on and I'll be watching it. But it's pretty rare that I'm in on a weekend.
Yeah. And you went out to Leger this year as well. You were in.
That was the first one I'd actually been to, man.
Really?
That was the first one I'd been to.
How was that? That's quite a big thing.
Yeah. It was lovely. It was mega. I just felt like it's just so interesting being on that other side of it, just wandering around with my wife and my son, just like some people recognising me, some people not. I love it when I'm just under the radar and I'm just cruising and just watching how it's changed, like the rigs, the rigs.
Yeah, so different, eh?
And like wanting to have a go at it again was quite interesting, because I'm like, so they're making it harder for people to get into, and they're making it more elite and da-da-da-da. But I can totally see the positives to that. It's like when there's so many tyres on the track and the track's getting hammered, and it makes it more dangerous for them top guys who are pushing harder than ever. It's like, yeah, slim the field.
Yeah.
Like, mate, I experienced that firsthand. At Hardline was 30 riders. The track was prime for racing. It was prime.
Yeah.
There wasn't deep braking bumps and ruts around every turn. It was just like bedded in lovely. There was ruts and there was things, and I was like, that really was like, a small field just makes that experience for the racers that much better. But obviously that was for me, who was absolutely blowing by 30 seconds, whereas them guys all train a lot harder and they can take all that stuff, and but yeah, it was interesting being back at a race and seeing how it's all grown.
You felt comfortable there though, yeah?
Yeah,
totally. It's a big deal when
so
you've
many
been away.
Familiar faces, man. It was like I'm far enough away from it. It's been long enough that there's no like weird feelings. I'm just like there experiencing it, enjoying it. Yeah, catching up with people, loads of familiar faces all in different places. That's what was so funny. It's like, yeah, you're there now and he's there, and it was the same group. Everything's different, but nothing's different.
Yeah, it's all the same people. Yeah, just with a different jacket or different t-shirt or whatever. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, that's cool, man. You mentioned like wanting to have a go at it again. Like, when did that start to happen in your head? Because that's a big move from where you were at to saying, I quite fancy giving this another crack.
Yeah, just basically having ridden a bit of downhill this year, like it was really nice to feel like I had a purpose on my bike again. Like, I'm going to do laps. I'm just riding my bike. We'd go to Gothland and just like do 10 runs. And I was like, that is a mint day out. I've just been and just, had that escape. I've just tuned in to the track all day and just had that escapism. Beautiful. Just time on the bike, getting to know the machine, playing with the machine, changing all the crazy stuff we can change on that bike. And then going and doing my races, I was like, I really wasn't riding above my head. So it was easy for me to put a run together. Mm-hmm. Whereas when I used to race, it was like, this is life or death. I'm trying it as absolutely hard as I possibly can everywhere, and one little thing can ruin it. And there was none of that. It was just like a totally different approach, and I think that's why I've enjoyed it so much. But purely for I just was like, right, well, I've enjoyed that a lot, and it'd be interesting to see where I stacked up after not having done it for so long. Could I make the semis? Maybe I'd make the finals if I'd had a good few attempts at it, had a good off season, maybe a few races in. Well, I don't know. It'd be fun to see, wouldn't it? But for me, it'd be fun to see.
It'd be fun for all of us. I can't think of many people that wouldn't want to see you have a crack at it. Like,
that was really nice as well. Like, obviously on my socials, like so many people who at one time would have been like, what are you doing? Being like, oh, it's so nice to see you about riding in and not in like when I was 2016 or whatever, getting a top 20 at a World Cup, and people would be like, oh yeah, super disappointing run for you there. Like, there's none of that. Yeah. All that expectation had gone, so that just made it a lot easier for me.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was nice.
Yeah, and behind the scenes, Cannondale obviously are doing a bit of work on this downhill bike. I think you've been involved to some extent. What can we say?
We can't say much, but what I can say is like how ahead of its time that machine was, and like if they'd have kept that program running, I feel like they'd definitely have a leading bike right now. Like, that thing, it's crazy. It's just so different to anything I'd ridden before, and jumping on a full 29, slacked out, long front and back rig, and going down a hill on it, I'm like, wow, this is so capable. It's really just confidence inspiring, and yeah.
Because you were probably, you were riding such a small bike back then as well. You were probably like almost a bit behind the curve in geometry, and now you've leaped like a long way forward. Yeah,
totally. And I think like what the V10 used to just do is like my front would grow.
Yeah.
So your weight center was just off, and like I could just never get my head round turning the larger bikes because you weren't central, you were off the back.
Yeah.
And now, like, obviously, we've clocked on and both ends grow together and keep your weight central. And it's like, it's longer, and you have to lean in advance. You have to pre-book it. They turn and they hook up, and it's so different. Yeah. So different.
You've been enjoying riding the bigger bikes then?
Yeah, loving it. And after doing so long on an undersized bike, I was riding a medium when I first jumped on Cannondale. And like the downhill bike's equivalent to XL or 2XL or something, it's massive. and like, yeah, I love it.
Has that trickled down to the other bikes? So
Totally,
you riding bigger?
Well, I
versions of the
ride
other
large
bikes?
now.
Yeah.
I just ride large, really. I've got one medium in my fleet, and that's my habit, which I like ride jumps on.
Yeah.
But yeah, love the large bikes.
Yeah. Fair.
And do you know what? Also, like, I watched Phil Atwill riding a big bike, and I'm like, there's no such thing as not having a playful bike. It's what you take to it. Like, his bikes always look massive, and he's doing just amazing stuff on him. Yeah, he's so good to watch, isn't he?
Yeah.
I love watching Phil.
Yeah, hopefully we're going to see plenty more edits from Phil over the next few years. It'd be really good to see. Incredible rider.
Yeah.
So do you think there's a chance we'll see you between the tapes at a World Cup? Like, obviously there's a bit of hunger there, but like you say, the way the sport is heading, which we can question or not, like it is going to get harder to get in.
Definitely, yeah. I think that is one of the unknowns. I think I'm just going to sort of maybe chip away at trying to get some points and see what the future holds, if there's wild cards available, if there ends up being a team somewhere, which we'll see. You know, there's so many unknowns with what the sport is doing, what Warner Brothers have planned, and what them and UCI sort of come up with between them, and then what Cannondale are doing, and we'll see what stars align.
So you're going to put yourself in the best possible position.
Exactly.
Yeah. What do you think it would take then to compete for you at a, let's say, getting into finals, maybe top 15, top 20 finish? Like, what work is there to do?
Loads. Loads. My fitness, I've not like trained. For hardline, I rode my motorbike.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing like 25-minute hard enduro motos and downhill laps. I didn't actually do any cardio. The motorbike kind of covered my cardio base, and I was doing that like once a week, twice if I was lucky, and then just like riding. So like I need to get fit, really.
Okay.
And I'm pretty keen to do that.
Yeah.
And I know, like, it was crazy. I think I rode my bike 8 times before hardline, my downhill bike. Maybe it wasn't that much. And every time I rode, I feel like I picked up where I left off.
Okay. And
each run just got better and more in tune and more like muscle memory and I know like to refine that to the last bits will be the hardest to get that complete sharpness, but I just do it, innit? Just ride, just get fit and ride, and just
What's your aspiration? Do you feel now you're like the ego's mellowed enough that you're happy to go back and just see how you get on, kind of thing, or is there still enough of you that would really want to be, I don't know, top 10 podium? Like, where's the aspiration?
Currently, I've no idea like what that looks like for me. I don't know what I'm capable of. Like my time at hardline was like, I wasn't in the mix with dudes who are qualifying currently. Feel like I maybe could have been just about if I'd have had the fitness to put a run together.
Okay.
But I couldn't. So you can't even say that.
Yeah.
So no, I'm not like, I'm going to go get a top 10 next year. I know it wouldn't be a quick process.
Yeah.
I know that it wouldn't be an easy process because I see them boys are just, they've not had a break and they're giving it everything. I'm not under any illusion that I'd just like cruise back into some, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But just like, the people who follow me on Instagram really enjoyed seeing it, and I want to make myself as valuable as I can to the brand I work for, and the motivation. There's all these different motivations. It's not just like I want to stand on the top step.
Yeah,
there's just a whole.
Just want to be part of it.
Be part of it, and enjoy it.
Yeah, that's the main thing, isn't it? Right?
Yeah,
life's too short.
Yeah, exactly. And that's another thing I've found like the last few years with like working and taking on bigger projects. It's like you can take on these big projects and let them stress you out and not enjoy them very easily. Like, it's so easy to let that run away with you, where you can take on these projects and sort of enjoy the process and as best you can. Obviously, there's always times of like challenge and
of course
whatnot, but yeah, bring a good attitude and let it unfold.
Yeah. Do you think it's changed much since you've been away? Like, the technology's progressed, arguably the athleticism has progressed, especially at the very top of the sport. I would hazard to say I think there's probably more depth in that like top 20 group of riders than there was back then.
Yeah, undoubtedly.
Do you think it's changed? Like, do you have to relearn how to do it, or do you think it's a case of applying what you already know?
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of complication for marginal gain.
Yeah.
Which it's all about marginal gain for them top boys, isn't it? Let's be honest. There's,
looks like it, doesn't it?
It's so intense, isn't it? Like you said, the field is so deep. But like, yeah, it's crazy. So any little bit what can help them is important, isn't it? And when they're dialed throughout, it's not adding loads to the plate just to Bruni with his buttons,
But I would say, and again, I'm looking from the outside, so I could be totally wrong, but that's the exact opposite of your approach when you were racing. You were not a marginal gains guy.
That wasn't me, no, not at all, and I won't be.
Okay.
I won't be moving forward, I was very much like Matt. We'd go to Fox testing at the start of the year and we'd set up our suspension, and I wouldn't differ much depending on the track, maybe a PSI or two, a click or two. But, I'd never like change my setup drastically. I'd just learn my bike, and that was my sort of, I knew my bike, so I knew what it'd behave like. Yeah. And it's, it seems different to that these days, but I would not change my approach. Yeah.
I believe Jackson's like closer to you in that respect, from what I hear. Like, doesn't make too much change. Will adapt the way he rides the bike to the track rather than adapting the bike to the track.
Yeah, mega.
So it's doable.
I know, we've missed him this year.
Yeah, big time, eh? Like, so good to watch.
I know. Be interesting to see what he does next year. Mega.
Be cool for you to line up against some of this, like these next generation of riders that feel like they've moved or are starting to move the needle up a little bit.
Yeah, and mate, I know, but it's crazy. The needle is moving for sure. It's gnarly, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really cool. It's cool, man. Some changes as well for 2025. Like, we've seen this leaked document of this more like last chance qualifier format, less teams, all this kind of stuff. Yeah. Have you not seen that?
No, tell me about that.
So again, I don't know the source of the document, but it was on the big websites as an official Warner Brothers thing.
Right.
Who knows if this is right or not, but anyway, it was there. So yeah, rather than semis or qualies, semis, finals, there'll be a qualifier with let's say the top 20. We don't know the numbers, I don't think, but let's say the top 20 automatically go through to the final the next day. And then for the remaining riders is the last chance qualifier with 10 spots to go through to the final. Right. So there's an incentive to put down a fast run in qualies so that you don't have to do that extra run in the day. But if you have a problem, you haven't got through, you've got another crack.
That sounds cool.
No protection, which I think is a really good thing, because there's obviously two chances. If you've got a mechanical in one, you've still got an LCQ. And then obviously that reduced kind of number on the race day. But I think that feels pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. I like the sound of that.
Yeah.
Cool.
You up for it?
Top 20 in.
Yeah.
That's intense, isn't it?
It's pretty full on, isn't it?
Yeah, mega.
But it'd be cool, eh?
Yeah.
Nice. We'll see what happens, mate. Hopefully we'll learn more in the not too distant future. Yeah. Another big change for you, canal boat to house. And, some land. You've got some space here where you are, which is, when you're a bike rider and like the outdoors, is a pretty damn cool place to be. What have you been up to with it? Have you been building trails? Because you've got a bit of land with the house. Like, I think the Bolly Skyline event, which we'll talk about in a bit, went through land that you have and have built some stuff on. Like, what have you been up to in and around the house?
Yeah, so when we moved off the boat in 2019 and moved into the house, and then it was 2020. I think it was 2020. We exchanged on some land down the road, so it's not actually. It doesn't link to the house.
Okay,
but it's a woodland I've been riding in for a long time, like way over 20 years since I was tiny. I used to pedal along the canal and get to it, and you know, it just has deep roots for myself personally. I used to go and train for downhill in there. It's just this one little rocky run down the middle of a quarry, and with initial vision of having a bike park, was what we set out to do, and it's just been a really good space for us to facilitate like custom builds for video projects for brands. And the whole ecosystem just worked really well for myself and Loose Dog and different brands we represent. We've done stuff for Gyro down there. Loose has done stuff for Marzocchi, and we've just done the latest one we've done. It was just a build for a video going out on the 50-1 channel. And yeah, buying diggers, learning about land management, machinery, you know, that's been the last 4 years. That's all been going on the side sort of thing. But you know, it took precedence during COVID and like lack of travel and no one going anywhere. I was like, well, life's changing completely, and it didn't look like it was ever going back. Explored all that a lot, and like I said, it went hand in hand. It's never taken away from my riding, it's always added to it. But we've just been improving our ground slowly but surely, and like putting access tracks in, bit of car parking, building little things here and there, tracks, and then to come through with a race. We had a demo event for Northwest, a local bike shop, last winter, and that was the first time we invited like the public in. And just to see people riding around the woods on stuff we'd built with smiles on their faces was just like, oh, that's so good. And then this year we had the Enduro come through, and that was again like another massive milestone. Just like, wow, people are in here. We're holding this event. Do you know what? You can ride a track. That was really funny. That was like one of my favourite bits, was like putting tape on a track just transforms it. It's like, I'm never one to like take a sneaky line. If the rut, like you go up Mac Forest, if the rut in the corner's 2 foot deep and full of black stagnant water, maybe you'll cut a little inside. But I'm not that Strava line guy, you know what I mean? But then you put tapes on a track and you're just looking at it so differently. You're like, right up against that one and cutting, and that was really fun. So I proper enjoyed that. Just that element of seeing tracks taped on our ground. But so the land's just been like an ongoing project. And again, kind of like that thing I spoke about, we set off with an intention of like bike park, but wasn't super like, this is like needs to happen and this is like super important. And then we've had Jess, my wife, has held space for other women, and other women have done like circles and retreats, and
nice.
We got married down there. That was epic. We just like had what's the gazebo called? The marquee. And spent ages dressing all the little paths up with wood chip, and just doing nice. Like, you know, it just felt so nice. And but just having Milan's been a real, for me, another string to my bow, learning loads of different skills, from chainsaws to diggers, and even, you know, just observing and where to do what and not, and all that sort of stuff. But that's been ongoing on the side for the last few years, and love it. Absolutely
good
love
excuse to buy tractors.
Yeah, exactly. The toys, you know, the necessary toy list just really increased at that point.
What have you got then? Have you got a significant amount of machinery floating about now, or?
Yeah, probably.
You got carried away.
Probably. Got a couple of diggers, and a couple of tractors.
What's the best toy? Like, what's the most useful thing you got?
Probably I'm using my loader a lot at the minute. I've just got a little JCB telehandler, like an older thing. But the first thing I bought was a skid steer. So when we moved in here, actually, we set about making some jumps in the garden, and we set off in November or December and just like dug like huge trenches and And then it just rained so much, and we were borrowing my neighbour's dumper and my dad's little mini digger, and we just had piles of slop everywhere. So then I found this tracked skid steer on Marketplace, and bought that, and that was my first investment into machinery. And we're just able to move everything we needed and clean up afterward, and it was like, wow, that was a revelation. And that thing was just, I'm actually trying to sell it at the minute. The guy came to look at it yesterday and it wouldn't start.
Oh no.
I was like, oh man. So I did like a little help thing on Instagram.
Oh, I did spot that. And,
I had a couple of good bits of advice, and I'm going to work through that at some point soon. But yeah, machinery is just fantastic. It's amazing. When you're living in the country and you've got, I could probably get by without, because I get myself into situations when I then need it. But I'm just like, whenever it comes in handy, it's fantastic. And like we had to do a lot of groundwork for the Enduro at the hub where the event was. Like, we needed hard standing for the stage and tracks down to the camping fields and this and that and the other, and I was able to do all that, which was like saved us a fortune. And I enjoy it a lot.
So you held this, I think it was an 8-stage enduro. It would have been if the weather had played ball on race day, over quite an extensive portion of land locally, of which you own a very small piece of. Why? Like, it feels like you've created a huge amount of work for yourself. There must be a real passion behind that to like go and do it. Or were you just blind going into how hard it was going to be?
No, you bang on. We created an incredible amount of work for ourselves. But long story short, there's a festival in our local town once every 4 years, and it's a Bollington festival. And they were struggling a little bit for funding. And a now friend of mine, I didn't know him at the time, contacted me 4 years ago and was like, we're trying to add an Enduro event to the festival to drum up a bit of cash. We're trying to like be a bit more modern and diversify. You're a local expert. Will you be involved? I was like, yeah, of course I will. And one thing led to another. They didn't actually end up wanting the liability risk on them as a festival themselves.
Yeah, okay.
But we were sort of a fair way into the process of making it happen.
Yeah.
And we decided to set up on our own and pledge 50% of our profits to the festival, which runs as a charity.
Yeah.
And here we are. Actually, we pulled it off. It was a staggering amount of work. And that was the closest I've ever felt to having a real job. I was like, there was a point there where I was like, I'm sacrificing valuable time with my family, and that was sort of getting to me a little bit.
Yeah,
because I was like, I really, really value any time I get to spend with my son. And when I get in and I've got, half an hour with him before bed, I'm like, it's not the dad I want to be.
Yeah, fair.
But it was for a short period there. And again, like I said, it was a buzz to pull it off and see. On the Saturday before the rain came in the evening, we had mega conditions, sunny, dusty tracks, people buzzing at the hub, the beer tent full. It was just like, oh man, we've done it. And that was a long-term project. So
yeah, where do you even start? Like, you can't go out and buy like Idiot's Guide to Running an Enduro Race book, right? Like, how do you even work out what needs doing? Yeah,
well, Richard, the man who got us together, me and Adam, another local lad who has a bike shop in Bolly, he is far more academic than I am. So he was like dialed with the research and is involved in running the festival himself. So he knows what infrastructure is required. Whereas I was set to the task of just the route, which that in itself became an absolute monster, and the amount of things I had to do to just facilitate that. And then two of the stages never even got ridden, which I'd put weeks of work into, but I didn't want to jeopardize the possibility of running them in the future, access to get people out if they were injured was limited.
Okay.
And the landowners were a little bit more sensitive to what that impact it would have on their ground.
Yeah.
So it felt like at the time, it was like, this is sort of insurance. We're able to do it again. And all the work I've put in, if we can only use them once, then that'll be hard. Whereas if I make the right call and we can use them moving forward, then it seems a sensible option, you know.
Must have been a buzz though to have. I mean, how many entrants did you have in the end? It was like oversubscribed massively.
Yeah,
right?
620 we had sign up. And then there was a moment on Friday when I was driving, I had to go and get the tractor, or my sister went and got the tractor for me from the woods, and then I was like driving back through Pottswrigley to go and tow someone out of a field, and my phone was just like, I'd had some jobs to do Friday morning, and it was like 5 or 6 p.m. and I hadn't started them yet, and they needed doing by the next day. And I was like, oh no, what have we done? But then, managed to get there, and it all panned out. And we're already talking about next year. So
good. I was going to ask if there's a 2025. I couldn't make it this year, and I was kind of gutted. Like a load of mates went and said fair play for how well organised it was, because often the first version of an event is a bit scrappy, and I think one of them had a pretty big crash, and you were checking if he was all right. And
was that him down on the side? Yeah. But that a lot of that's Richard to thank, and we sort of definitely went like over the job rather than under it. Like we tried to sort of have more than we needed, so we didn't get caught out. Yeah, but very measured approach by Richard.
Yeah, and fair play for having a contingency for the weather as well, because a lot of events can get pretty wrecked by that, and especially this year we've like. Every race seems to have been rain affected, like World Cup, all the Pierce rounds, like everything. Crazy. It's rained on race day.
We I know, and the week leading up to it, it was so nice, and I just had that feeling. I was like, it's not going to hold that long.
It's not in 2024. Oh mate, it got so close though, and I think the coverage that people saw of the dry day is enough to make anyone want to go and ride it. Like,
yeah, hopefully, and it's so typical of the area. It's like short and sweet. Like we had a couple of 2-minute stages, but the rest were underneath that. But it's stuff that I just go and lap and really buzz off. And I did have confidence in the tracks being enjoyed, and mostly they were. So yeah, it's good.
Happy days.
It's good.
I wanted to talk about a bit of a trend that I think you were a big part of starting, and that's higher and higher rise handlebars. I think your first, like the ride high was 38, then it went to 50, but you've recently been out high rise by Dakota Norton.
Big time.
On like 70s or something. Like,
yeah.
Were you surprised to see that?
I know, he's saying Cup? 70, but they look
bigger.
They look bigger.
Yeah.
Was I surprised to see it at World Cup? Yeah, no. When we first did the 38s, like they looked dramatic, and now I've got some 38s still on a few bikes, but I'm pretty much 50 across the board. I look at my 38s and they look little, and it's just that like it's so interesting. And you look at Dak. I love watching Dak. He's one of the riders I'm a big fan of. That film piece he just put out, that scrub he's doing, of that like Storwall thing.
So stylish.
So rad.
Yeah.
Just folding it. But yeah, they are dramatic, and you can see it. You can see what it does to his weight distribution on the bike, which is really interesting. And he's so unique, and he just makes it work. And anyone who can just step out of like the norm. And then you look at like Bruni and Finn, and they're so low on the front, and I'm like, man, surely they want to come up a little bit.
It's weird, isn't it? How like the extremes, that you can see Dakota's so far kind of back on the bike, and the front end, I guess, is sort of softer to compensate. But like, it's clearly not slowing him down, right? Like,
not at all.
Almost every race, he's been one of the fastest guys on track.
I know, it's so cool. And then you see how like big Bruni's upper body is, because he's relying so much on his arms.
Yeah.
And obviously it's working for him. And then like Dak so far the other way, and just like that spectrum and everything in between. it's rad, isn't it?
It is. Where do you go next, though? Is there a 100 mil rise coming? What are you going to do about it?
Well, do you know, I feel like it just sort of evolves with the machines too. Like the longer back ends get, or the longer bikes get, you need to bring that up, don't you? So it's like, will we see bikes continue to grow? Or have we found that sweet spot now?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, would you want to go any higher? Like, are you intrigued to try the bar that he has, or are you kind of comfortable with where you're at?
I'm intrigued to try it for sure, especially on the downhill bike.
Yeah.
What I also had a small go on this year, Dave was on the same bike as me. Obviously, it was one size of a Cannondale downhill bike.
Yeah.
So we got him like a 10 stem, and what that did to the steering just felt really cool.
Okay.
And I feel like Burrell was on this years ago, wasn't he?
Yeah, zero reach pretty much. Yeah,
on the zero reach. But I feel like what you could do with the length of your bike if you had zero and a super high bar, it'd just be interesting to push that, see what that came back with.
Yeah.
But no, evolution, fantastic, isn't it?
Cool,
And Dak has definitely outbarred me.
He has outbarred you, mate. You're gonna have to raise your game. Class. I wanted to ask a bit about business. Like 50 to 1 obviously is kind of the clothing brand that you guys put together a good few years ago now, which seems to have been going from strength to strength. But like bike industry stuff in general has been pretty tricky the last few years. Like, how's it been with 50 to 1? It's still there, so it's obviously surviving. But
yeah, 50 to 1 is surviving for sure. Loose. It's basically that brand is two people, and it's Josh Lewis, and Ralph Coffino, which is Sammy's older brother.
Okay.
One of the waves. And yeah, I have very minimal input anymore, just because my time, I prioritised when we bought the land, me and Jess in 2020 sort of prioritised that, and literally just ate up every spare minute I had. And then obviously Sylvester and whatnot. But Luce and Ralph just put the heart and soul into it, and like you said earlier, it's like, if you work hard at something, if you really work hard at something, it'll continue.
Yeah.
And like, that's a very true representation of that. Like, them two guys put a lot into that company, and it's not easy being a small business in the big corporate world. Is not easy, but I feel like we have our little cult following, and everything's very honest, and like, it's just got Lucy's enthusiasm written all over it, and that's beautiful. And the YouTube, like Luce, we do a video a year, like a big project, and Luce just again pours his heart and soul into it, and is so passionate and insanely creative. I talk about diversification. Luce has like his own music, now he's an artist.
Yeah, he's got super creative on that. Yeah, it's cool.
And just like, I feel like for me, like, I've gone one way and Luce has gone the other way, and like, we're still like best of mates, and I love him so dearly. But I feel like an old man when I look at him. I feel like he's so in touch with like popular culture.
He's down with the kids.
And watch, like, the instrument these days is like that thing they mix on or whatever it is.
Yeah, like a little MIDI controller or whatever. Yeah.
And we had this moment, actually. I felt like it was the first time I'd relaxed all year. No, that's not true. But in a good few months, where on the Saturday night of the Enduro, the heavens just opened, and we had a stage which was sort of set back from the marquee, just because of lay of the land in on the butcher's ground where we held it. There wasn't like a big flat area, so we were sort of fairly constrained to how we could lay everything out. but the stage was not near the marquee, and it was bouncing it down, so everyone was in the marquee, and my band had just finished on the stage, so we like said to Luz, let's just drag the speakers in the marquee, and the crowd had really thinned by this point anyway. It was getting late, so we brought the speakers in, set them up inside the marquee, and him and Jim Topless just like did a tune each, like went back to back or whatever you call it, and like did this thing. And just like watching that unfold, I was just like, oh man, that is so cool. That's like so creative, and it's so normal for most people. Like, I guess like that's like just not even a big thing, but I really, really enjoyed watching how them two bounced off each other, and
seeing your mates perform. It's
totally,
super
mate,
cool, eh?
Totally, exactly. That another creative outlet to do that thing, and just it was a nice moment.
Very special, nice one. So 50 to 1. You had your summer jam at Revs as well this year. Like Revs is back, which is a good thing.
I know, mate. I know. So pleased for James. I know he's a grafter. Like he is always grafted his absolute taters off at that place. But I think for them to have that reset and a rethink and come back as what they are now, and like with, e-bikes, the modern era, innit? Like to aim themselves more at that market, I think it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And first jam, what other jams have we been to? First jam I've been to for a while, just great vibe. And we had very minimal input. We just sort of promoted it. Went and did a day, sort of working on the tracks with James a little bit. But them guys killed it. And fun times.
Good to have that back. Is the 50 to 1 line intact? Did that survive?
It is intact. Yeah, completely. I think that was one of a few. Vision had a few little bits, but he soon polished them up. But it's still there. And to see that, it's funny, we actually ended up there at the end of the day.
Okay.
And it had been a huge day. Like, everyone's so excited, just doing laps. And then it's like, we saved the biggest line till last. And there was some moments going down, let me tell you. It was wild. But again, just like to get an eye into like the progression of the sport and where it's at, and the young kids going hard, and it's cool.
The level seems to go up and up and up
across the board, isn't it? Like,
in racing, in all types of riding, every discipline, every style. Like there's an influence. I guess it's like it's so accessible, right? Through social media, you can watch any type of riding any time of day from anywhere in the world. So that influence is there. If you've got that, if you're that way inclined, you can find it, you can see it, and you can go and try and do it. Like, it's super cool, because we definitely didn't. It wasn't as easy for us to be inspired, I think, when we were younger. I mean, I'm a generation beyond you, I guess, but
no, I agree though. That's a huge part of it. Like, it's literally at the fingertips, and the inspiration is just constantly flowing, isn't it? And these hungry kids just see it, soak it up, and then just go and do it. And it's unlocked. It's like that guinea pig in something. It's like doing something first is the hardest thing, and then as soon as it's done, it's possible.
Yeah.
And then it's just getting done.
Yeah, you just got to trust it.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Where does it all go, man? Where does it all go? Where does it go for you? Like, what? Obviously, you've got a little bit of an eye towards, you'd like to have another crack at a World Cup and see how that feels and how that works out for you. But you've got Bolly Skyline 2025, so there's half the year gone sorting that out. But like, are there other things you want to cram into next year other than a points chase?
No, that's about it, really.
Yeah,
try and keep it
full
simple.
schedule.
I think the Enduro next year will be a lot easier, because we did a lot of stuff this year.
Yeah.
So hopefully next year will be a few weeks sort of prep.
Yeah.
We'll see. And getting out in the van with a family and going see some IXSs or wherever we end up, and that'll be fun.
Yeah.
And nice. That's about it for the time being. Obviously keep chipping away at the land, keep improving what we've got down there, add bits and bobs. But this has been I think having the wedding and stuff and it being the first time for the Enduro made this year seem really intense. But yeah, and hardline thrown in the mix. So we'll see. Yeah, we'll probably end up with another flat out year, but that's just the way it goes.
Would you be up for hardline Medina for making that trip?
Yes, I would. The dilemma I sort of sit on currently is like, with or without a family, like I really sort of struggle to leave for longer periods.
Yeah, fair.
I just like, he's developing so much.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want to miss anything. But I also don't want to drag them all that way if it's a short trip.
Yeah, you want to make a holiday of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and getting him on a plane for that. I don't know.
Mate, I don't envy you that challenge. That would
like you can't sit still. So we'll see. But I contacted Warren about it a few months ago saying, stick my name on the list if it's possible.
Yeah.
And I've not heard back, so we'll see if I make the call or not.
Fingers crossed, mate. Well, it's been a real pleasure catching up. It's great to see like your thirst for riding and life is in no way diminished. Keep doing what you're doing. I think everyone's enjoying watching it. Everyone's that went to Bolly Skyline had a great experience, and hope to be able to get to that in 2025. If people want to keep in touch, like, where's the best place to follow you these days? Are we still Instagram?
Yeah, old school now, innit? But yeah,
no TikTok.
I'm still just Instagram. No, I tried doing the TikTok thing, but I don't know. I'm not good at that stuff.
Fair enough.
Yeah, Ratty Bryce on Instagram. And Chris, thank you for your time. Thanks for having me back on again.
Pleasure,
to
mate.
revisit some of that stuff with you.
Nice one. Take care, mate.
Cheers, brother.